What up? Marsh Pod coming to you on a glorious Friday afternoon, a mobile Marsh Pod. I apologize, you're not going to hear any birds in the background this time. The sweet sounds of nature will not permeate your ears, just my voice. So you're welcome. To quote the great coach, Dennis Green, they are what we thought they were. And that could not be more true as we wrap up another week of SimWorld Hoops action. And that's for good, for bad, for ugly. But up and down the SimWorld Hoops week, we saw exactly what we've seen from teams time and time again. Let's start with Cascadia, a team that's now, I think, 3 games under 500, but they are what we thought they were. They're a team that revolves around a singular guy in Arthur Lattimore, whose addition of Jason Tata, which was supposed to boost them into contention, has not. They have a perfectly fine supporting cast, but not a supporting cast that can be consistently relied upon. And Arthur Lattimore is a player that, for all of the great things that he does, and there are plenty of them, he lacks the ability, and this isn't necessarily skill set, but to take guys off the dribble. And in today's NBA, not NBA, SimWorld Hoops, in today's basketball universe, a back-down, post-up type of guy is just not successful. Centers do not lead championship teams. You say, well, hold on, Nikola Jokic, are we losing our mind? Nikola Jokic is as much of a point guard as he is a center. Does he have incredible post moves? Absolutely. But can he run in transition, albeit looks like he's hurt every time he's doing it? Sure thing, man. There is not a back-down post guy that leads championship teams. The Sixers have struggled building around Joel Embiid in recent years, and it's why if you pan the rest of the NBA, there's just not a lot of great centers. And the same is true at all levels of basketball, SimWorld Hoops included. So Cascadia team that's been in the middle of the pack. They've been good, they've been bad, they've been, hey, we could make it, hey, we're never quite out of it. Well, they're not. And now they basically are. They have to lose. They need to see Bad Boys lose out, and they in turn need to win out in order to get that 8 seed. I would not bet on it. Let's go to Bad Boys. They are what we thought they were. They lose to Run DMV last night. They had a chance to clinch or at least knock out Cascadia, yet they can't get it done. Why? Because that team is utter chaos. They just fired their coach because he dared speak up and toss profanities at a player's father. Who is running that asylum in Detroit? Who's in charge? You fire a pretty good head coach because he gets mad at a dad. Parents should not be involved, man. And now we're firing a head coach because he doesn't want a dad of a already mercurial player. And I think there's a reason to believe this. I don't know how much of the chaos is actually Lorenzo Phenom's fault. I think it's old Sire there that's the real problem with that team. If anything, Mudge Williams gets out at the right time, doesn't have to deal with this down the stretch run and deal with the inevitable defeat in the first round of the race to 1. There goes kiss of death. They're going to win it all now. But that is a team that has been inconsistent. Lorenzo Phenom has not proven to be a great basketball player. Their guard play has been subpar, and they lose in a game in which they needed to win. They are who we thought they were. You know who else is? Run DMV. They beat the piss. That's not a swear, right? They beat the piss out of the Originators. Because why? This team shows up. We went over this 2 weeks ago. They're now, I think, 9-2, if not, they might be 10-2 at this point, against teams that are 500 or above, or rather, teams that are in that upper echelon of the league. If Nick Hugo is cooking, get the hell out of the kitchen because it's burning up. They are unstoppable. When Nick Hugo is playing well, there might be the case to be made. Maybe it's inarguable the best head coach in SimWorld Hoops and Coach Myron Murray. But Run DMV, when given the opportunity to play on the brightest stages, gets the hell up. They were awesome against the Originators, which is exactly what we'd expect of them. They are who we thought they were, the Originators. In what way, you say? Well, they just won 9 games. Are we really going to freak out about a 2-game losing streak? The sky's not falling, but I do have questions. Okay, you play against a team that has an athletic center, an athletic front court, and the Originators look utterly lost. If Victoras Ilgauskas cannot be planted in the middle of that defense in the paint, this team's defense goes to hell. He is as paint-bound of a center as you're going to find, and he does it incredibly. But the knock that you're going to have on him is he's not mobile, he's not athletic enough to hang with other big men. Now, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence as you try to project him out to the next level. I've always been a little skeptical about what that is for a 7-foot, 240-pound 17-year-old. What's he going to look like at 20, let alone 27? Is he going to put on more weight? He's got no more weight. Where's it going to go? And then you come off the bench with Kevin Sullivan, who's like the great value brand version of Victoria Ilgauskas. What we haven't seen from Coach Dodge, and these recent comments, I have to admit, quite surprising. What we haven't seen is a Tyrone Snyder center group. And talked about it a little bit with CJ on the broadcast. I believe it was CJ. I apologize if it wasn't. Maybe it was E. But anyway, this team is very multi-dimensional because of DJ Wagner, and they've played a lot of different lineups. But one of the lineups we didn't see, and what we haven't seen when the going has gotten rough against these more athletic teams, is the ability to, or the flexibility to play different lineups. We haven't seen that. That gives me a little concern. Beyond the fact, they're not going to be the number one seed. So what? That means they might face, they could still be the one. They don't currently have it. They could face reigning Trays, and that's certainly a less favorable matchup than Bad Boys basketball. Absolutely. That alone shouldn't be enough for concern. I still think they're a great basketball team, but that makes me a little cautious. They are who we thought they were, Showtime. We tested the hypothesis that Showtime doesn't play well, or rather gets up for big games. And that hypothesis now bearing more fruit as they struggle to win against a Heartland Zombie Stars team that, frankly, folks, if they have a number one guy, this is a really dangerous team. Now, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to have a great record at the end of the season. I think they're 9-18 at this point, something like that. But they've lost 9 games by 6 or fewer points, I believe is the stat. They've been in a lot of games. And against Showtime, they showed up. But here's the thing. We're not talking about Heartland, unfortunately. Sorry, Coach Skinny, because you guys aren't in it. But we are talking about Showtime because they do not play well against big teams. But as I've said this before, they only play well against big teams. But as I've said this before, fortunately for them, in the playoffs, that's all we're going to get, is games against the best teams, especially where they're sitting in the division. So for Showtime, it's concerning. Again, all of the talk that was reported on weeks ago, I think it was last week, about them having some turmoil within that locker room about usage and playing time and who's actually featured behind Bronny James remains concerning. But they're not getting up for big games, but they haven't gotten up for a single one all season. They are who we thought they were, a lone star. Since that blistering start, they have really struggled. That's not been underreported, under-talked about, but it remains to be a puzzling concern. Jace Maguez has been good. Ninny Gibson has been not as good. We did a pull-out podcast right before July 4th where we focused entirely on them, and the problem has been both of those, especially Ninny Gibson, has been really quite bad to close the season. And then their supporting staff, who they needed more from, has been really quite bad. They have not gotten up for big games. They lost to Southeast Select. They have not rebounded well in any of the games that they've had an opportunity to do that in. It makes it really difficult to look at that team and say, yes, I trust them. I really do trust them. And at this point, I don't. I trust them if they're playing a big team. But again, this is the CKC proof in the pudding. If you have one guy and that's it, and that guy had an off night, he did have an off night, Brownie did, against Heartland, you have no other options, and they don't. They are who we thought they were, Rocky Mountain Monsters. A huge win last night, not because of who they played against, but because of, again, it goes back to how deep is this team? They got a really bad night. Let's not beat around the bush here. Justin Bell was not good last night. Yet Rocky Mountain walks out with a 7-point win because they get a huge performance from Daquan McDougal. They get a huge performance from Kenneth Gaffney. And it's not going to look as big because McDougal spilled the stat sheet. I think Kenneth Gaffney probably have more assists. But Lucas Banks, my goodness gracious, is he just like the pole in the sand? I mean, this kid consistently gives you the same performance every single night. And that's what Rocky Mountain needs. That's what a championship team needs. Now, am I going to sit here and predict Rocky Mountain's going to win? I'm not, because I don't love predictions. Because you get one wrong, and it starts being finger pointing. Look, you're an idiot. How did you get that one wrong? You're so stupid. And then you get it right, and every person's gonna be like, wow, Siege Stradamus, Braun Stradamus, Meistradamus over here calling everything. I'm not gonna make a prediction, but Rocky Mountain has the composition of a championship team because of their depth. And then the last team that we'll mention, the Indy Strikes. They are who we thought they were. They are chaotic. Chaos follows the Jameses wherever they go. In the offseason, it was Benari. In the regular season, it's Barkley. In the postseason, it's no one because they're not getting near it. They had that 2-game winning streak where they mathematically were still alive. But again, at the time I said it, I thought they were a team that could get in, but they ultimately weren't because they just have struggles at the head coaching position. And truthfully, would not be surprised if we see a coaching change in Indy this offseason. I wouldn't. Why? Not because Javon Storm isn't a good coach, not because of this specific turmoil that they've had that's engulfed this team with Barkley and Benari, who at this point I'd expect neither of them back if I had to choose between that, although Benari seems to want to stick around for some reason. The reason that they don't make it is because of all those reasons. They have never been able to be functional. It's been purely and utterly dysfunctional all season, before the season even started. So they entered this with this aura about them that we are invincible. We've got Resurrect, the Goliath of a big man at 15. He'll end up being 7'6", 335 pounds, and unstoppable. He barely got playing time. Benari James is an incredible scorer, but he can't carry the team to victory. Johan Nowajovic is pinned to the bench. They let White Williams cook with the ball when he can't even cook a salad. This team does not survive, or this head coach does not survive this offseason, in my opinion. And I've been hearing some concerning things that make me think this to be true, otherwise I wouldn't say anything. Because they just haven't been able to figure out what should have been a really talented roster. So they are who we thought they were. All right, we're back next week. You have a great weekend. A little bit of hoops this weekend. And then we're back on the pod on Monday. And we're nearing the end of the month, which means Pointless Power Rankings are getting updated in the next week or so. And most of all, most importantly, we're near the race to 1, baby. We cannot wait. August 12th cannot come soon enough. Have a phenomenal week.